Hello, I'm Archie Luxury and welcome to the program. Have I got a treat for you today? I'm drinking a Johnnie Walker Double Black and soda at the moment. I think Double Black is a great scotch to use as a mixer. It's not a premium scotch like Archie drinks, like Blue Label or the Islay malts, but it's a good mixer. Today I'm going to present the top 10 luxury sports watches. That's right, the top 10 luxury sports watches. And when we're talking about luxury watches, we're talking about a watch with a retail price of over $4,000. Anything under $4,000 retail, it ain't cut it. So let's begin this talk here. So number one, what's the number one luxury sports watch? It has to be the Rolex Submariner. The Rolex Submariner. And it can be the date model, it can be the no date, it can be a two-tone, it can be a solid gold stunner. The Rolex Submariner is probably the most iconic sports watches of all time. In surveys I've done, it's probably also one of the most popular, desired and wanted Rolexes of all time. The Rolex Submariner. It has such a long history. It starred in the James Bond movie, the original James Bond movie. It's had such a huge exposure over the years, from Sean Connery, Roger Moore, and it's just so iconic. When you think of iconic sports watches, Rolex Submariner. It's kind of like the Jaguar E-Type of classic cars. It's a foundation of what a classic car is. And the Rolex Submariner, it's just so iconic. And I've owned quite a few over the years. I've owned 5513s, I've owned 5512s, I've owned 1680s, I've owned 16800s, 16610s, I've owned 14060, I've owned a lot of variations. I've owned the two-tone, the 16613, this solid gold, the 16618. The list goes on and on and on. And I think the Rolex Submariner is probably the most iconic, the most spectacular Rolex sports watch of all time, and I'd even say one of the most spectacular sports watches of all time. The Rolex Submariner, an absolute iconic legend in sports watches. Position 2. What's the second most luxurious, the top 10 luxury sports watches? What's number 2? Who gets it? Some people aren't going to like this, but I'm going to lay it on the line. Number 2, the Rolex Sea Dweller / Deep Sea. That's right. And it is such an iconic model. It started life as a 1665 in plastic. It evolved into the sapphire crystal versions and then became the Deep Sea. And I mean, the Submariner is a great watch, but the Sea Dweller, it's such an important piece in the range. I'm going to have to give it its own billing. That's right, it gets its own spot. And the Sea Dweller is very different to the Submariner. It's thicker glass, higher waterproofing, and it's an iconic sports watch. So number 2 goes to the Sea Dweller / Deep Sea. And if I had my pick, I would probably my all-time pick out of those two, the Rolex Sub or the Sea Dweller or the Deep Sea, I'd go for a Sea Dweller, a sapphire Sea Dweller. Magnificent watches. Okay, slot 3. Now this is just like slot 1 was the E-Type Jaguar of classic cars. Spot 3 is the Mercedes Pagoda of classic cars. Another classic. And I'm awarding spot 3 to the Omega Speedmaster Man on the Moon. This is probably one of the greatest sports watches of all time. The manual wind Omega Speedmaster. Absolute classic. The original incarnation had a 3-2-1 movement. And then it was changed. They refined that movement. They kind of cheapened it, to be honest with you. They made it an 861. I've owned quite a few 861 Speedmasters in my time. And then it became the 1861. And it's just classic. Now, I've got to give you a warning. The automatic version is not the same. Okay, the automatic Speedmaster, yes, it says Speedmaster on the dial, but it's not the same as the manual wind. The only Speedmaster you should buy is the manual wind. Now, people are stupid. They don't know this, but when you go to the watch store, they've also made now, because the automatic version was always smaller than the manual wind. Now, the tricky fuckers have gone and made a version that's the same size as the manual wind, except it's got the automatic movement. That's dog shit. Absolute dog shit. You want the manual wind Speedmaster. That's the only one that you should have. And I'd probably stay away from the sandwich version with the sapphire display back. The movement's not worthy of display. You want a movement worthy of display, it's got to be a Patek or a Vacheron. The movement's not finished enough. It's not worthy of display. Rolex doesn't display their movements because they're not worthy. Same thing with the Omega. It's not worthy of display. So you get the traditional Omega Speedmaster Man on the Moon, and you have a top sports watch. And don't get the fucking one with the sapphire. You get the plastic crystal. When I'm saying plastic, it's the glass. The original Speedmaster, which they took up on the fucking rocket to the moon, that had a plastic glass. Okay, it's plastic. It was not sapphire. The new ones that have a sapphire version, forget it. It's dog shit. You want the fucking original moon one. If it was good enough for the lunar team, it's good enough for you. So that's slot 3. Okay. Slot 4. Slot 4. And I'm going to award this to the Rolex Gmt. The Rolex Gmt. And I think that's one of the all-time classic sports watches. It was invented for Pan Am. That was the international airline. That was when airlines actually gave a shit and didn't treat you like fucking cattle. It's when you actually wore a suit to board your plane. It's when they served meals and escorted you to your seat. It's not like this fucking airlines that they run now, which are an absolute joke. I'm just going to grab a coffee. I'll keep talking. So, in my opinion there, as far as it does go, you can get nothing better as far as a GMT goes than a Rolex GMT. I love the 1675, the original plastic type model. There were earlier ones, yes, that's true. The 6542. But I gotta say, the plastic 1675 is a great piece. The more modern sapphire pieces are fantastic. I love a GMT watch. It invented the genre. Okay, it doesn't get more cooler than a watch that invented the genre. It's a GMT. GMT or GMT2, they're both cool fuckers. Magnificent piece. And I think the Rolex GMT in the range there, man, that is a cool sports watch. It's fucking cool. It's a great watch and beautiful. I love a GMT. Position 5. I'm going to go on a mountain trek. Sir Edmund Hillary, the Rolex Explorer. I'm not talking Rolex Explorer 2, I am talking Explorer. This is the Explorer 1. Not officially called the Explorer 1, always referred to as the Explorer, but I like to refer to it as Explorer 1 to differentiate it from the Explorer 2. Explorer. It's really, a lot of people say, it's just a fucking date just, it's only this. Well, fuck me dead. This is one of the all-time classic sports watches. It invented the genre. It was a chronometer movement, okay, chronometer meaning high-grade wristwatch, in a nice steel case. And that's what it is. You look at the early Submariners, they're basically an Explorer 1 with a rotating bezel. Okay? So just look back at the history and the breeding there. The Explorer is a very, very important watch. I've owned my first Rolex. When I turned 18, I got myself an American Express card. I cancelled the fucking card after I got platinum. It's just all American fucking wank. American Express. Leave home without it. They suck. But I gotta say, the Explorer itself, I bought one when I turned 18. What a cool watch. The Rolex Explorer 1. It's iconic. It's where all the sports watches started from. You know, it's like the first Benz, the first automobile. It's #1. And I highly, highly love that model there. Okay, position 6. Position 6 I'm awarding to the Rolex Explorer 2. The Rolex Explorer 2 came out in 1972, I believe, from memory. Early 70s. And came out as a 16x5 in plastic. I've owned one. I've owned an orange hand. Beautiful watch. Made for cave dwellers. I don't know where the fuck they got this, the marketing people came up with that. But the Explorer 2, it's a cool watch. It's really cool. I've loved the Explorer. And at one stage, the Explorer 2 was really the in watch, and the Sub and the GMT were on the outer. This is early 90s. No, actually late 90s. Late 90s. Then the Sub took over, and then the GMT. So, you know, these watches, don't ever think the Explorer 2 is not the one to get. It's a great watch. It's discreet. You can easily pull off an Explorer 2 with a suit, with a white dial. With a white dial. You can never do it with a black dial. You cannot wear a suit with a black dial. But you can wear a suit with a white dial Explorer 2. It's not the best thing to do, but you can pull it off. Okay? That's the reality. So the Explorer 2, another all-time classic Rolex watch. Position 7. I'm going to award this to a famous diving Omega. The Omega Seamaster. Long history of ocean-going Omegas. The Seamaster. What a fantastic watch. What a fantastic modern watch to have there. It's just great. The Omega Seamaster. And I have to say, I've got a friend, Greg Kinder, who's got the quartz one. And it's a well-made piece for the money. Second hand. They're low. About the 1500 mark for a quartz one in newish condition. That's not bad buying for a decent sports watch. It's a decent watch. Now I know The retail price on the Omega Seamaster quartz is $2,860. Yes, it's slightly under my it's a lot under my $4,000 barrier. But it's still worth a mention. That's how good it is. It's worth a mention in my video. Fuck! Omega Seamaster. Position 8. What am I going to award position 8 to? The Breitling Navi Timer. That's right, one of the aeronautical greats in watchmaking. The Breitling Navi Timer. What an iconic piece. Beautiful dials that Breitling use. And that's just one of the all-time classics. The original pilot genre watch, the Navi Timer. It's an absolute classic. You can't criticize the Navi Timer. It's just fantastic. The Breitling Navi Timer. What a fantastic watch to own and to behold. And position 9. It goes to the legendary Rolex Daytona. And I love the Daytona, especially in gold. The steel's a bit passé. Everyone wants a steel Daytona. It's very, very passé, okay? But if you want real class, buy the fucking gold one if you can afford it. Second hand, they're low 20s, low, you know, $21,000, $22,000. That's a nice watch to have. I love them. The Daytona is a classic. I can't stay here and preach that it's not. It is. It's a fucking great watch. Okay, finally, position 10 in the all-time, the top 10 luxury sports watches of all time. It goes to the Royal Oak. Royal Oak, Audemars Piguet Royal Oak Offshore Series. Now I'm wearing my Royal Oak, the classic Royal Oak. I'm wearing that on my wrist. I can't wear sports watches. I don't know if you've noticed this with Archie. I know Archie is extremely good looking. But there is a little bit of portliness to Archie. So sports and Archie don't really mix. It's part of the joys of having wog parents who tell you sports are a waste of time. The Royal Oak. The Royal Oak Offshore Series. Very expensive, but probably one of the... It deserves a position. It deserves a position. I didn't award a slot to Patek because the Nautilus is kind of... It's not really modern sports, okay? It's casual, elegant sports. And the same with the original Royal Oak. It's not really a sports watch in modern terms. The offshore has replaced it. And same as the Reverso. The Reverso was a sports watch when it came out for the polo players in the 30s, but the watch snob says the Reverso is the ultimate dress watch. So it certainly can't be a fucking sports watch. But there you go. The Royal Oak. The Royal Oak. One of the greatest, the Royal Oak Offshore Series, one of the greatest all-time sports watches. I'm Archie Luxury. I hope you've enjoyed this top 10. Please give me your comments and tell me what you think of my rating system. Yeah, that was enjoyable, Archie. Good couple of watches in there. Sports watches. What a nice genre.